Good evening and welcome to the Millis Public Schools School Committee meeting on December 6, 2022. My name is Stephen Catalano. I'm the chairperson. I want to start with the roll call. Ms. Gibbons, the secretary, is not here tonight. Ms. Briggs?
Here.
Mr. Conroy?
Here.
And Ms. Roach is unavailable to attend. We do have a teacher rep. Ms. Copese is here. No student reps. Mr. Mullaney, the superintendent, is here. And Mr. Wiggin, the Director of School Finance and Human Resources, is here as well. Before we get into the agenda, I want to announce that this meeting is being recorded and can be viewed on Mondays at 7 p.m. on Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 37. All meeting videos are also posted to the Millis Public School website under School Committee. All videos are also available on YouTube. All school committee meeting minutes and agendas can be found on the school committee page of the Millis Public School website. Persons wishing to speak during open session must sign in before the meeting starts. Comments are not to exceed 3 minutes in time. Individuals may not name students, staff, or parents, and all topics for discussion must be limited to those items listed on the evening's agenda. And all comments must be directed to the chair. The committee may not respond to public comments. It shall be their decision to discuss issues at a later date. All times on the agenda are approximate. Is there anyone signed in for open session? Okay. Ms. Copese, would you like to join us for your presentation, please? The teacher rep.
I feel like I was just here. Oh wait, it was only 7 days ago.
Got a busy late November, early December meeting.
All right. Well, because I was here a week ago, it's pretty light. We'll go fast. The Millis Public School high student is, through Project 351, is hosting a food drive to benefit the Millis Food Pantry through CFB. They are collecting specific items at each grade level, and folks can check out the newsletter to see what is being collected at what level. The grade 3 students have finished up their weather enrichment activities with the high school chem club students, and they'll be back midwinter to do some explorations in calorimetry and flame spectroscopy. And let's see, picture retakes will take place this Thursday. I don't remember writing that. Must have. All right, at the middle school, the second trimester has kicked off, so many of the middle school students are exploring new UAs, and the trimester 1 art students have just finished up their clay creations that they've been focusing on. The middle school concert is next week on Wednesday, December 14th, so you can pop in and see the dulcet tones of all of our students. They've been working super hard. Nicholas Roy has been selected to be the Millis Middle School Project 351 ambassador. This is a nonprofit organization that develops a new generation of community-first service leaders through a year-long engagement in 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts. We're very excited for Nicholas to explore this opportunity. And the 7th grade science classes have been working on engineering design. They have been creating bridges using only 2 cups and a $1,000 bill, although it's not really a $1,000 bill. They'd be very expensive bridges otherwise. At the high school, Term 1 honor roll was just announced, and they can check out the newsletter for all of the names there. Our school counseling intern and 21st century skills coordinator, Ms. Hilton, has joined up several of the world literature classes this week and taught connections between one's values, self-confidence, and time management skills. So she's been working on short-term and long-term planning with our seniors, which is great as they get ready to move out into the world. The Millis Leos have 2 initiatives going on right now. They are doing a laundry detergent drive, so their goal is 100 bottles, and they're a little short of halfway there, so hopefully those will keep coming in. They've also kicked off a gift card drive to benefit local teens during this holiday season. Global Goods is coming this Thursday, which is 2 days from now, and the proceeds from that event will be benefiting Common Ground at the high school as well as the TV studio. In our STEAM Scholar Project Spotlight tonight, I'm mentioning Marola Arian and Nora Shagru. They have been working with Ryan Kamere to build surveys that will allow for personalized feedback for our students. So both of them are looking to present health careers sessions to the underclassmen. Nora's is a focus on sort of hospital-based jobs, and Marola is doing public health. And so what they've been really kind of exploring is how to build really good Google Forms that will then sort of generate who wants to do what based on their questions. So they've kind of taken their Google form game up a notch. And Ryan has been great working with these students. They each reached out individually. And so each of these young ladies will be offering sessions likely during Flex Block in the spring. And they'll be able to reach out directly to students and be like, you don't know it, but you wanted to be a public health nurse. So Marola's survey was a lot of fun. She had questions like, what kind of toothpaste do you like to use? So she's been kind of studying, like, how do you sell things to people who don't know they want it? So marketing jobs, because of course public health isn't super glamorous, so students don't necessarily know that they want to do that. Cross country had their banquet last night, so all of our cross country students were recognized. And I've been invited to sit on the chemistry MTEL qualifying score committee in January. So that'll be kind of fun to have some input on what that next round looks like. At the district, what we have for tonight is that CPAC is quite literally, as we speak, offering a virtual session with Dr. Wilkinson regarding autism. So that is from 7 to 8 p.m. And finally, what the students are most excited about is we have our early release day tomorrow so that us staff can experience some really kind of nifty activities. So at the middle high school, we'll be attending a session on executive functioning strategies by Kristen Jacobson. So I'm kind of, personally, I'm excited for that one. At the CFB, there's a couple of different projects going on. The Hill Literacy PD Module 6 is happening. Spanish teachers and paras are doing some DESI World Languages standards and training, and ESL teachers are doing Access online training. So we've got kind of a fun afternoon planned for tomorrow. And that's what I have for tonight, so thank you.
Ms. Copese, how do you build a bridge with 2 cups and a $1,000 bill? Do you have glue, paper clips? What do you do?
I'm not sure. Would you like me to report back to you on that next time?
So you can buy your way out of an engineering issue? So
I'm
we
not
don't,
sure
we don't know what,
We don't know, but I can update you next time.
is there a possibility, at some time in the spring, can we have some sort of time in learning where you bring in some of these different projects or examples of some
You mean
of
like
this?
the owl pellets?
Well, can you bring in kids that talk about it?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what we had several years ago. We had kids present, I forget exactly, but it was entertaining and it was good and it was helpful. But you talk about all these great projects.
Okay,
Maybe we could do something in the spring.
okay. Would you like to give me some dates for that so that they're such busy little beavers? Why don't you chit chat and let me know?
We will chit chat. We haven't set up our calendar for.
Right, so you just let me know and I'm happy to bring in some of our.
I would like to know, Bob will give me some information on this bridge project because I'm curious.
He wants to
I
build
can
one
touch
now.
base on it and give you an
I watch
update next time as
Engineering
well.
Catastrophes on TLC.
Oh, I do
which
too. I love it.
I love that show. I'm not thinking there's going to be any catastrophes with this, but I'm curious now.
Have you seen like high school and middle school children build their engineering projects? Sometimes there are some catastrophes,
Okay.
but it is a lot of fun, so.
Oh,
All
okay.
right.
see
So
what you're
I can
saying.
update you on the bridge next week, because aren't we back like
No,
next?
we are in a working session off
Oh,
camera. You
so I have next week
You have
off?
next week off,
do?
yes.
enjoy yourself.
Oh,
Enjoy
well
your
then I'm
time.
going to leave you with the
We
fact
won't
that
see
the
you till the new year.
the high school concert is on December 22nd.
Ah,
So.
is there anything else, or is that the only thing that?
That was the only thing that I had on my radar that I was, keeping in the bag for next time. So I'm glad you mentioned it. But yeah, let me know and I'll be happy to bring
Okay,
some.
we'll figure something out.
students
That's
in.
convenient for everyone involved. Thank you.
We all have to be here, so really it's the students.
That's right.
Have a good night and a great holiday season, everyone.
Goodbye,
Thank
happy
you, you
holidays.
too. Happy
All right,
holidays.
so we only have one action item, and that's to approve the November 29th, 2022 school committee minutes.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Briggs.
I make a motion to approve the school committee meeting minutes from last week, the 29th of November.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, the next is time and learning. We're going to have school improvement plans, which are very helpful for the committee and the general public to see what is being planned. It's also part of our mandate by the state that all schools have a school improvement plan and that it be presented in a public forum such as this each year.
Correct. And normally we do it a little earlier in the year, but as you said, it's been pretty busy.
We've had some busy.
So we've been waiting with great anticipation, and we'll start with Elise Malloy, assistant principal and counselor at Clyde Brown School. Ms. Jango was unable to make it tonight.
Yes.
Good evening, Ms. Moore.
Good evening. Let me just project and just make sure this works. You guys see?
Yep.
Great. So hello, everybody. I'm Millis. I'm the assistant principal and school counselor at Clyde Brown. As Mr. Mullaney mentioned, Mrs. Django is unfortunately unable to attend tonight. She is our building principal. But I'm here representing our school improvement plan. So you're going to probably hear multiple times tonight our school, Millis Public Schools vision and mission. I'll read it quickly to save to have our other middle school principal and high school principal not have to read it unless you would like them to. So our vision in the Millis Public Schools, the Millis Public Schools are respected for high academic standards, committed to social responsibility, and dedicated to educating and inspiring every student to achieve personal excellence. Our mission of the Millis Public Schools community is firmly committed to developing students as independent, lifelong learners and leaders who will contribute to a changing and complex society. So you'll notice that we have specific words that are highlighted here, and those are phrases and words that we'll be looking at our school improvement plan. Our overarching goal of the Millis Public Schools is a personalized learning goal. In Millis, we honor each student as an individual learner, recognizing that students have their own learning styles, interests, passions, challenges to learning, strengths, identities, and skills. We engage, support, and challenge all students through varied and culturally responsive instructional approaches that help students take ownership of their learning. Students are afforded voice, choice, and flexibility in how they learn and are allowed to demonstrate their understanding in various ways to improve student well-being and ensure that they are future ready. The CFB School Improvement Plan of 2022-2023 also mirrors our district improvement plan goals. So you'll notice that our goals are very similar to what Mr. Mullaney has presented in the past, and our middle school and high school principals will be presenting shortly as well. So our 4 goals at Clyde F. Brown Elementary School this year: number 1 is to provide rigorous, challenging learning experiences that promote academic growth for all students. Number 2 is to implement high-quality curriculum using instructional strategies rooted in evidence-based best practices. Number 3, support student physical and mental health and wellness. And number 4, develop and sustain a culture of belonging and dignity for all students. So, goal number 1, if I go too fast, just tell me to slow down, please. To provide rigorous, challenging learning experiences that promote academic growth for all students. Over the last year, we've been working in our professional learning as looking at the science of reading. So we are continuing to do that this year. We're looking at modules 6 through 8, as Mrs. Copies just mentioned. Tomorrow we're going to be looking at module 6, which is automaticity. We'll also be looking at text reading and vocabulary development. We are going to be also having professional learning focusing on great minds, wit, and wisdom. This is part of our new literacy program that we're using at Clyde Brown. The module and lesson study to understand focusing, questioning, ARC preparation, productive struggle, and lesson preparation. And then we're also going to be looking at writing with the Wit and Wisdom program to understand writing instruction and action, content, craft, and create. Our Spanish immersion staff, this is a continuation of a goal that we started last year, is to collaborate with colleagues outside of the district to improve our Spanish immersion programming. And we have reinstated our curriculum enhancements, which is where in previous years we used to bring outside speakers, poets, authors. We had the Wing Masters come the other day. So kind of reinstating that back to Clyde Brown has been really wonderful for our students. We're very excited about having outside speakers come back to the district. Do I ask any questions so far? Are we good? Okay.
Good.
Goal number 2 is to implement high-quality curriculum using instructional strategies rooted in evidence-based best practices. These are the 3 programs that we're utilizing at Clyde Brown this year with our new literacy program. The implementation of Wit and Wisdom. Wit and Wisdom is a comprehension program. It's to empower students to develop their critical thinking and communication skills for comprehension. That's for grades K through 5, so all of our teachers and students are working on Wit and Wisdom. We're implementing the implementation of Haggerty, which has explicit modeling and student engagement for phonemic awareness. That's for grades K through 2. We're implementing Foundations and Geodes, which is a multisensory instruction emphasizing decoding, encoding, and handwriting skills. So that's in grades K through 3, and Spanish immersion grades 3 will be utilizing Foundations as well this year, and then they will also be using that in grade 4 next
So
year.
is Foundations a play on Foundations that you have fun while learning?
Probably, yes. I think it's a phonemic awareness, so it's learning to build their phoning and understanding. But yes, it is very fun because they.
Or do I have that wrong?
No, I think you do. I think you
Okay.
have it correct. It's yep, fun on learning.
I get it.
The other thing that, the other goal that's coming out of Goal 2 is our report card review and revision for the power standards. With the new literacy program, we need to make sure that our report card is reflective of those changes and looking at Massachusetts state frameworks. We also are changing our report card model. This kind of came out of our school council and speaking with other parents and then speaking with our staff to a 2 report card, 2 conference model this year, which is new for Clyde Brown. Traditionally, we had 3 report cards and 1 conference. So that had been something that was brought up by our school council, other families and parents, and also connected with our staff about.
So when will the second report card come out?
So the first report card will come out in January.
Okay.
So we had conferences in November. We have a report card in January. We have conferences in March, and then we have the report card at the end of the year in June. So the conferences give more of an opportunity for parents to connect in person with us teachers.
So if there is a student, I'm going to ask a, which
Sure.
I think is a rhetorical question. A student in trouble, the parents are not going to find out about that in June with
No.
the report card.
Correct. No, they
So
would
if there's
be.
a question of they're maybe they're not going to advance or they may have to do something over the summer, they're going to have plenty of notice.
Yes, and in fact, actually, so one thing that isn't on this slide, but also is part of our goal number 1, or on the previous goal, is that we're continuing with our data teams and our screenings, which we do multiple times a year. So if a student was qualifying for any sort of intervention, reading, math, social, emotional learning, we would be communicating with the parents.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Does that Haggerty go with Spanish immersion kids in 1st and 2nd grade too, or no?
Pull up my notes here,
I'm
Mrs.
sorry.
Briggs. No,
I mean, because the phonics are different, right?
yes, so
I'm just curious.
yeah, no, it says Spanish immersion grades 3 for this year, and then grades 4 for year 24.
No, the one above it.
The Haggerty model?
Yeah.
Yes, it's kindergarten through grade 2, so that's a specific curriculum for K to 2.
And Spanish immersion kids in 1st and 2nd.
Spanish immersion is following a different curriculum, and I don't remember
No,
the
that's
name
fine.
off the top of my head, but it is new as well.
Okay. Just
It's
I was
not
just
the
curious.
Haggerty model.
Okay.
And if you give me a few minutes,
No,
it'll
no,
come to me. But
That's fine.
do you remember what it is, Bob?
I don't. I
You're,
know
you're
they-
pinch hitting, it's fine.
Okay.
It's okay.
You're
It's fine.
fine.
All right. Thank you.
It was called out in the bottom one, so I wasn't sure if it was inclusive of the
Yeah,
top two.
I think the foundations one is because we're trying to build phonemic awareness. It's something that we want to make sure that all students have all the way up. And I know for Spanish immersion grades 1 and 2, they're strictly, as you know, focused on Spanish instruction. So we want to make sure that their phonemic awareness in grades 3 and 4 is solid.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
No? Other questions?
Nope.
Okay. Feel free to bring it on. Just doing the best I can. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for your
No,
patience.
you're good.
So goal number 3 is to support students' physical and mental health and wellness. Many of these goals are a continuation of previous years post-COVID. So looking at strategies to address our students' social emotional needs. We are continuing to do our counseling tips with Clyde the Bear every week. So students are learning coping strategies while watching the morning message with Clyde and the counselors. We also are increasing our Tier 1 whole class counseling lessons. So we started doing that last year. Kind of recognized that there were certain areas that we needed to really focus on after COVID. And so we are continuing to do that again this year. And we are reinstating our Open Circle Family Program, which is an evening program over 3 evenings. We are going to be hoping to hold that in March. That will be run by myself and Kelly Nunziato, the other school counselor. We are looking to continue with our encouragement, recognition, and celebrations of students and staff. We do that through staff shout-outs, Bear Paws and Bears, so similar to what I know your children were part of the Bear Paw and the Bear program. and then our Leaves of Kindness program, where students recognize one another through acts of kindness, and those are read on the morning announcements by our 5th graders. We're going to hopefully be starting that. We're kicking that off in our December assembly. And then we are continuing to use our SEL screenings, as I mentioned earlier about intervention. Our screenings are done multiple times a year, and we use that data through data team meetings to then create a multi-tiered approach for students for social, emotional, behavioral needs and supports. Okay. And goal number 4 is to develop and sustain a culture of belonging and dignity for all students. So we are continuing to implement our school-based programming to support a positive culture and climate at CFB. Our PBIS and school-wide reward program. In previous years, some of our rewards were very individual focused. So a student would receive an individual bear paw, they would receive an individual bear, and then they would receive a golden bear, if you remember back when your kids were probably young. Now we're trying to do more of a community-based approach with our PBIS program. So students still earn bear paws for demonstrating our 3 core values. They bring that bear paw back into their community of their classroom, and the classroom as a whole will receive a bear after 100 bear paws, and then after 30 bears as a community, we have been holding school-wide rewards. So we had, we had Millis Pride Colors Day at our last all-school assembly in December. Hopefully, if we get 90 bears by then, we will be doing Pajama Cozy Day, so either December or January. But students get really excited about it. Clyde's been picking the all-school award at our all-school assemblies, which we have started back again at Clyde Brown.
Is Clyde, can you go back to the picture with the bear? Mm-hmm. Is that I hope none of the kids are watching, is that a stuffed animal picture, or is that a person in a...
That is Clyde the bear, Mr. Catalano, yeah.
There was no Clyde the bear when I remember, when my...
Do you want him to come to the next school committee meeting?
I want an answer to my question.
So Clyde the bear comes to all of our all-school assemblies. He comes down, he interacts with students.
Is it a full-size bear?
It
It's
is
not a stuffed animal.
It is a full-size bear that comes. That walks. Waves. Clyde doesn't necessarily speak. He's very shy, so he usually talks to myself or Mrs. Django or Mrs.
So
Nunziato.
you translate for Clyde?
I do.
She speaks bear.
Huh. I've never seen...
Yeah, you know what? I will. You can see some of our videos of our Clyde Brown counseling tips too with Clyde.
I think he should come to a meeting so Steve can meet him.
Love that.
Oh, he
You
just
should
yeah.
go to the next assembly and watch.
Yeah.
How would Clyde do with an engineering project with those big paws? Would there be problems?
There might be. Although Clyde's pretty handy, so Clyde can
That's
do lots of
interesting.
things.
I was looking at that. I'm like, is that just a stuffed animal with a really good picture? That is that's a bear.
That actually is from our school counseling tips. That was one of the videos. That's a still framed shot of Clyde the bear.
I'm sorry, I did not.
No, that's-
I hate to interrupt you, but now that
No.
you're saying that someone's at an assembly and reading things out, it appears that
Well, he picks out of a basket.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah. But I'd love to show you one of our weekly counseling tips. So if you're really interested at the end, I'll cue it up and you can take a
I
look.
actually am interested, but I'm sorry, I told you to
No.
go quick, and now I'm asking
That's-
questions and
That's okay.
demanding answers to the Clyde Brown secret.
No, yeah, you're doing great. So this was a picture right here of our last all-school assembly. In November, we did a thank you assembly. So we were thanking all of our community members. We thanked our, then I actually realized we should have thanked the school committee as well. But we had our Millis Police, Millis Fire,
that's
Millis Seniors from our senior center, the library, our municipal employees. So it was nice. Our students made different things. This was a flower garden for our seniors.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So it's really nice to have the all-school assemblies back. It really built a positive culture and climate at CFB. Another way that we are increasing our belonging and sense of dignity for all students is we are increasing our library collection at CFB to make sure that our books include more diverse cultures that are represented. And the other goal that we're looking to do is really to increase our English learner family involvement. Our English learners, we have a number of students who've just moved into the district, so really kind of building a welcoming community for them. We're looking to hopefully hold an event to bring families in so they can kind of get to know the school a little bit better. And we really also want to create a newcomer kind of list and program so that when a family comes to Millis or to Clyde Brown, they would have somebody to connect with. So that's another hope that we're planning to do this year. Also, our inclusion and equity are specifically targeted in our teacher and student learning goals. That's across the district. So that's Clyde Brown Middle School, High School. I think that's it.
Can you show us one of those quick,
I'm
or is
gonna.
that going to take you a long time?
Nope, it won't take me long at all. I'll let Paul Dupre go, and I'll pull up a slide and pop back up here and
Perfect.
pick a good calming strategy for everyone to try.
Thank you.
Okay?
That's
That
what
was
you need,
excellent.
Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Oh, I need to log out of here so Paul can jump on here.
What's the middle school mascot?
Millis.
You're looking at him.
Me. Did you see me out there in my abominable snowman onesie a few weeks back?
I did.
No. Yes.
I
For
can
real?
attest.
For real.
Where is it now?
Mr. Audicki, however, did not get into School Spirit Week and be dressed up.
It's
I
in my
did
office.
note that as
I
well.
should've
Too
worn
cool for school, Mr. Audicki. I remember back in the day, he would dress up. Yeah,
I should have wore it. I
remember.
should have wore it tonight. Maybe that would have been.
There's still time. The
Can
night
run
is young.
upstairs and get it if. See if I can do this here.
Last week's meeting wasn't as fun like this with all
No, there
those.
was a little tension in the air last
Yeah, I
night.
was
It
waving.
ended well.
It did, yeah.
I was
Wow.
waving. Some
Not
people
as
saw
many
me
jokes
out
flying
there.
around though.
No, we
The
were.
meeting. We were very
We
We
serious.
could pick and choose.
We were
yes,
very serious.
exactly.
Saw the library earlier. Here it is. Awesome. So as Elise said, we'll start with just our goals because we talked about mission and vision beforehand. Goals are exactly the same as you'll see from elementary up through high school, providing rigorous, challenging learning experiences that promote academic excellence and growth in students, high-quality curriculum and using instructional strategies rooted in evidence-based best practices, obviously supporting the student physical and mental health and wellness, and develop and sustain a culture of belonging and dignity for all students. So at the middle school, we've been working in looking at the school improvement plan and really kind of working through providing opportunity for our vertical teaching teams to identify and address targeted skills in students. So skills that may have been impacted by COVID, may have been impacted by some of the difficulties that we've been through over the past couple of years, and really focusing in on being able to utilize not only classroom time, but that wind block time that was talked about last year in selecting students for targeted deficits or for skill sets that they might be struggling in direct content, and providing opportunity over the course of a 6-week period in that wind block for students to have those deficits identified and worked on either through push-in model into the classroom or through interventionists, pulling students out and working with them individually. The WIN's been a real team focus. One of the things that I really like about it is the opportunity for vertical teachers and teacher teams to come together and really talk individually about students and about their needs and work with the interventionist and look at data. But not only that, the teachers know their kids. So in identifying kids directly and providing opportunity for students to have that wind block time to target those specific deficits has been good. The other thing that we have been, or that was focused on last year and kind of developed the process of providing, information to a child study team. They worked on creating the forms and gathering the information on how to create the child study team. And we are now kind of up and running in child study team starting probably next week. It takes a little bit of time for teachers to kind of get to know the students and what students they might want to bring before CST. But we have all the kind of process in place, and we'll be starting those meetings, early next week. Our plan is to meet every 2 weeks, very similar to what the high school does with their STAT team. Every 2 weeks, go through whatever children are presented to teachers for that team. And it's a team of guidance counselors, teachers, and administration that work through kind of the teachers' information about the student, about the struggles that they're having, about any other information that they have around the student. And the team kind of talks a little bit about different types of interventions they can do, not only from an academic standpoint, but from a social emotional standpoint, or any other, providing outside services potentially, or anything like that. So that team is up and running, and I did have the opportunity, which was great, to observe the stat team at the high school yesterday, just wanting to be sure we have some consistent models, so between the high school and the middle school, and great program, great team that they have going there. Answered a lot of my questions, and so we're hoping to kind of maintain that consistency middle to high school. The other piece there is obviously the literacy and math interventionists, very excited from last year to have them full-time again. And we are utilizing them very similarly to, what I talked about in that WIN block is they're kind of analyzing data. They're in classrooms. They're working with students in a push-in model, but also if they have targeted interventions, they can pull students out in that WIN block, or even during the classroom itself, and provide opportunity for them to work with students on specific skills. So it's been a great model for us. Excuse me. Again, a continuation from some of last year's goals, but also implementing some newer things this year. The team has, you're looking at the SMARTY goals, which is something that's across district, and that's really to look at different ways to provide instructional opportunities or different strategies that teachers would use to target their student learning goals. So each individual teacher has the requirement through DESE, obviously, to do a professional practice goal and a student learning goal, and they're targeting that inclusion and equity in those goals as well, which is a great way for them to target, to make sure that students have access and that they're really targeting their instructional strategies for specific students' needs. Excuse me. The other piece there, the teaching team's focusing on peer observations. That was something that was mentioned a little bit in last year's goal. What we're doing with that is, a lot of times teachers are, when they work in a classroom, they're doing things great, instructional strategies. You're using all these different strategies that might have a different name or might look different in another classroom. So what we've decided to do is have our PLC leaders and our guidance department kind of do those observations and provide that resource list of everything that really they're doing well already. Some of the SEL strategies that are being used, what they look like, what they're called. I might call it something different in my classroom versus another teacher, but it's that same goal. It's accomplishing the same goal for students. So we're actually taking the opportunity to look and discuss best practices, the things that are observed in the classroom by peers and by administration in a non-evaluative way, and really create a document and a resource document where teachers can see, well, we're doing a lot of these things well, and now we're actually implementing things that are making a difference for kids. The one thing that I love about Millis so far is the professional development process here. I know Ms. Knowlton does a wonderful job in working with the professional development team, but it's been targeted. A lot of what our teachers are evaluating and seeing as needs in the classroom is being addressed through their professional development. I can say that specifically even about tomorrow. Conversations with some of our staff around executive functioning, and there's a PD day tomorrow on executive functioning. So they're going to be able to take those strategies back to the classroom and use those to support kids as well. If I'm going too fast, let me know, guys. So the other goal 3, obviously, support student physical and mental health and wellness. This is a very important goal of ours. Particularly middle school kids, I think, have been through a lot over the past few years. We talk about. We talked a lot. You guys talked a lot last year about SEL practices and how they're implemented in the classroom. And what we've been doing is that peer observation piece and kind of talking in PLC team leader meetings about the things that are going well. And then our director of student services, Ms. Rao, has been during faculty meeting time providing SEL strategies for teachers to embed, during the classroom time, check-ins, different types of check-in models, different types of strategies to use with kids to talk about their day and to navigate the difficulties that they might be having with not only academics but with their social development and emotional development, particularly in middle school. We've also been working very hard to utilize the, like Elise was saying, the opportunity to do more group type activities, more group growth activities. So our team huddles. Our teams have monthly huddles. I was at a huddle the other day with 7th grade, and one of the things that they were doing is focusing on specific types of character developments during the month. So last month was responsibility. This month is integrity. And they meet in the huddle, they talk about what responsibility is, they talk about what integrity looks like. The students come up with their own definition, and then during the course of the month, the teachers, are working with students on those different character developments, and then at the end, the next huddle, they recognize students that have, really worked hard on their integrity, on their responsibility, on the things that they're doing in school around that social emotional development. So I saw 8 or 9 students yesterday receive certificates from the 7th grade teachers for, their responsibility and the way that they displayed that in school. So it's just a way to kind of show some character development, work with students on things that are generally outside of the academic realm, but will also support them in the classroom. As you guys also know, we received the data back from the Metro West survey that was done last year. We also have received data from DESE's vocal survey, which is basically views on climate and learning in the schools. And so what we're doing is, as an administrative team, is working together. The 3 schools actually will work together on presenting that information to our staff and presenting the things that are going really well, and then taking a look at some things that we might want to try to support and assist teachers in supporting in our students and try to make better. There's some work to be done in certain areas, but there are a lot of really, really good things happening as well. So recognizing the strategies that we're using to do those things well, and then how can we put that into places that we might need some improvements. And we're just kind of starting that process now. Bob has kind of walked us through that over the past couple of administrative meetings and working together to present that to staff. So looking forward to that. There's a lot of good information that kids will give you. So
we are having the Metro West study presented sometime in January?
In January,
Okay.
right, yep.
If you need more time, let us know, but it'd be nice to see it.
Yeah, we should be, I think we're looking, if we have a meeting on the 17th.
Okay,
Oh,
the
sometime-
second meeting,
yeah.
okay. Yep.
And then the last goal there is develop and sustain a culture of belonging and dignity for all students. And all of these goals are ones that I find very important, but this particular goal is one that I want to try to reinforce in our school to create that culture of acceptance, the culture of belonging and kindness. So, one of the things that I'm working with staff and our administrative team is doing is working on promoting student voice, the opportunity for students to give input around the different things that they are challenged by and different ways that they want to try to grow the culture. Because, we all know that grassroots, right, that's the best way to cause change in a school. And so we want to do what we can to get our students to be involved in that voice. We have a student council that teachers are running currently, and our student council has done a number of things like Spirit Weeks, recognition of some of our staff in the building. Our student council did a bus driver appreciation day back a few months ago. We did appreciation day for paraprofessionals. You guys might want to watch out. We might have a school committee appreciation week
No one
sometimes with
appreciates
that.
This is very boring. We get it. We
So,
understand.
but it does exist, right? So if we find it, our students will, if they find it, they'll probably want to do something about it. So, but it's been great to kind of see the kids get excited about not only getting, but giving back to people that are sometimes just not appreciated isn't the right way to say it, but students generally sometimes, if you think about a bus driver who has 30 kids or 40 kids on their bus, they don't always get a thank you when they're getting off the bus from kids. Our kids are very polite, but I think it was nice for them to really give back and provide that opportunity for them. We also continue to work on developing middle ground program with our adjustment counselors and staff. Our students meet on a regular basis with that program. And we've been looking to also do some more community events. We had a very successful pumpkin stroll at the beginning of the year. We had about 300 students and families come. We kind of feel like providing those opportunities for that family engagement again. People want to be back. They want to contribute to the school culture, and I think it's just been it was fun to watch. Families and students come together that night. So we're looking to do kind of more of those types of things where we'll bring students in. We talked to science department the other day about a STEAM fair that they're going to be planning for March. So just those opportunities for for parents and families to come together, see academic growth, see things that our students are working on, see them singing and playing instruments, and those types of opportunities are things that we are kind of looking to promote that the feeling of belonging and culture. And then finally, for me, one of the things that I look to try to do in January, moving towards the end of the year, is a real kind of student leadership focus, an opportunity for students to be real leaders, to come up with similar ideas to character development. What does that look like as a student for you, and how do we implement those things, and that they can encourage their peers to be involved in, and really give them that voice of an opportunity for them to grow socially, emotionally, and develop the culture that they really want in school. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you ready,
We
Mr.
have
Antico?
Clyde.
Clyde now?
Yeah, you know what, let's,
Intermission, Clyde.
yeah.
Sorry,
How do I,
Clyde, you're usurping your time.
Just take this down.
I don't mind watching.
I could go get Mr. Roddicky, the abominable snowman one, to you if you want me to.
Nope, we took note of how he came to the meeting tonight. I remember. It's duly noted.
All right.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank
So-
you so much.
What are we going to see here?
So you
Thanks,
can,
Paul.
you can have multiple choices here.
Oh.
Mr.
Choice
Capuano.
of choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's your favorite kind of test.
Yeah, multiple choice. That's right.
I went to Northeastern in the
Quick,
80s.
don't-
Yes, you're right.
All right. So,
Looks like a hostage.
so this is our counseling tips of the week that actually come out to not just teachers and students, but also families.
Okay.
So we do include this in our Family Bears Den, and basically they're presentations that have different counseling tips. So we can either, I just pulled out two, but you
Yeah.
can pick any ones that you'd like. So we can do roller coaster breathing or drawing with Clyde.
Let's see the drawing with Clyde.
Okay. Can you, oh, hang on.
Well, I'm here today with Clyde.
Let's see. Okay.
Clyde looks like he's drawing. Clyde, are you drawing? Great idea. That's our strategy of today, is to be drawing. Drawing helps to get out our feelings. So let's see. Oh, it looks like, Clyde, are you feeling happy today? 'Cause that looks like a pretty happy picture. See? Wow. Oh, Clyde, it looks like you had some feelings the other days. Were you feeling a little bit sad that day? Yeah. And were you feeling angry? That looks like an angry volcano, yeah. So any feeling that you have, students, is okay. It's okay to feel sad, it's okay to feel angry, and it's okay to feel happy. And it's kind of what you do with those feelings that counts. So try drawing. Drawing helps to get the feelings out and to feel better. So that's our strategy of today, is drawing. Have a great day, everyone.
So that one, it was actually filmed during COVID, because we started doing our strategies of the day during COVID. We actually did a strategy almost every day. We have a huge variety of strategy videos. So we have strategy videos without masks, with masks. Then we made a new one. This is just
Can we see this one?
sure. This is to start this year. This is a great strategy to practice.
Mrs. Malloy here today with Mrs. Annunziato. Hello. And Clyde. Hi, Clyde. Hey, Clyde. Welcome back for another school year to Clyde Brown. We're your school counselors, Mrs. Malloy and Mrs. Annunziato, and we are here to show you a counseling tip, a calming down tip every week. Right, Clyde? Awesome. Today's tip is a really big favorite with our upper grades, 4th, 5th grade students, and we'd love to teach it to everyone again this year. It is roller coaster breathing. So what we do is everyone takes their hand and spreads your fingers wide. You have Clyde as best you can.
Yep.
And you take your other finger, and you're going to go up and down your fingers as if you were on a roller coaster. And you breathe in as you go up and out as you go down. So let's all practice. You ready? Breathing in, breathing out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Wow, I feel much more relaxed, don't you guys? Awesome. So try that out, students, and have a great day.
That wasn't easy for Clyde.
I know.
I know,
he
it was a
just-
little
he
tricky.
just
Kind of
had
put him in
one.
a position.
One
Clyde
up and
has
down.
some, yes.
He's
but
going to have to go draw, or she will have
this,
to draw.
He might, yes.
So I would love to see some outtakes of those.
I have an outtake video as well
Don't
from.
put it right, don't do it now.
No, the students saw it.
Oh,
It was a few years ago in COVID. Mm-hmm.
that is awesome.
We have
I
it-
did not know Clyde existed.
Yes.
This is time in learning. I've learned something.
Yeah, and now you have a strategy. So when you're stressed out, you can either draw
Roller
or you
coaster
can do
breathing.
roller coaster breathing.
I'm not a good drawer, but I never get stressed. I never
Okay.
raise my voice.
So if you're driving in your car, that's good.
Blood pressure.
I don't
roller
have,
coaster
I
At the working session next week, you can use that strategy when you get stressed about what Terry
was
tells
doing it earlier
us.
when Bob was talking to me right before the meeting. I did not know what it was. I was just breathing heavy.
There you go.
Thank
There
you.
you go.
Thank you for that. I
Yeah,
appreciate
no
that.
problem. Yeah, if you're interested,
Yes.
I'll send you along the link, and you guys can look at all of the Clyde
I
videos.
actually think that that's awesome.
But we do have an outtake video.
Last question.
Mm-hmm.
Has anyone heard Clyde's voice, or are you the only ones that can hear it? Is there ever like some sort of brief?
Not students. No, Clyde's really nervous. He gets shy.
I get it. I understand that. Does Clyde have a potty mouth at times?
Of course not.
Excellent.
Clyde is a very calm, relaxed bear. He does a lot of strategies, so he's very calm
Very
and
good.
relaxed.
Thank you
Yes.
very much for that.
Anytime. Thank you.
Thanks, Elise.
Come on, Mr. Dickey. I have my. You breathe in.
Yes,
I'm-
there you go. Yep.
Now he's wishing he was walking up with SAT scores.
Yeah, remember those? Remember those presentations?
I do remember those days. Yes, I do. I know.
Very, very supportive of you.
I appreciate it. I hope it continues that way, I think.
I
Probably
see no reason why it wouldn't.
Probably depends on the length of my presentation tonight. I would imagine would have something
That's
to do
right.
with
We're
it.
timing you.
true.
Yeah, but now that I've come back here and you're all very calm
Yep.
and
We're
relaxed,
calm and relaxed.
this should be pretty easy. I would
Yeah, at
think,
least teed you right up.
Yeah, and I think, and if you're all drawing while I'm going through this, that's fine too.
I'm
So,
making mental notes. I'm sorry, Mr. Dickey. Please continue.
no, it's all right, and you'll be happy to know, like having had Elise and Paul go before me, they talked about
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of the things that I'll talk about too. So some of those things I might, pass over a little bit. I know
Sure.
as I roll into our goals, I don't think I need to read the goals
Nope.
again for
No, you're
everybody.
good.
Nope, we're good.
Our 4 goals are the same of the goals as the other 2 schools and fall in line with what Bob's put together for district-wide goals for us this
On
year
a
too.
serious note, I
Yeah.
think in years past, that was not always the case. Going back a lot of years, I think that is very helpful for the district and for the schools. So you're all, even though it obviously looks different from the Clyde Brown to the middle school to the high school, but I think that is a strong, I don't know if the state mandates that or if that was your decision.
Well, we felt we should align them,
I think that was a great decision.
There could be opportunities for some differences.
But
slight
within the
differences,
schools,
but the
how you implement
overarching
them, right?
goals.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I
think
think the
that's-
overarching part of it, and that, and Bob spent a lot of time with us during our retreat over the summer too, and we, working together kind of to create these, so that we were all kind of aligned
like
as we
that.
went into the year. I think it's great too, because we're all doing the same work, so, and so many different things fall underneath these categories to kind of lead us in that work as well. So, so the first goal, for us, same as the other 2 schools, is around rigorous and challenging learning experiences, promoting academic growth for all students. I think when I was here last year, a lot of the goals that you'll hear me talk about this year, some are continuations of things that we did or started last year, and some will be new. One of the things that we started and implemented last year with a brand new schedule was a flex block, where students have the opportunity to both take advantage of remediation as well as enrichment activities. And one thing we wanted to do this year, and it was met very well last year by staff and students alike. I think there were a lot of touch points for people to be able to have your entire staff available to work with kids during the school day, for both, what I say, enrichment or for academic enhancement purposes, I think was pretty unique and a great opportunity and well met by everyone. And I think one of the things that we, because we have a small staff, that we've tried to do this year is try to enhance the enrichment opportunities for students, because people have really taken advantage of the extra help piece, but we wanted to have other opportunities. So we've been able to, through our 21st Century Skills Coordinator, who's here with us, Ms. Hilton, who's interning in the counseling department, she's been able to bring in some different speakers in industry to meet with kids. This just yesterday, we had a speaker in from New Balance who designs his own in consultation shoes, sneakers for different people. He talked about his work with Kawhi Leonard and some other people, and we had probably about 20 people in the room, not just hearing about what his job is and what his process is, but how he got there and the things that he had to do along the way to get there, which was pretty cool. Some of our teachers, the math department's doing some math SAT prep. English is going to do some English SAT prep. They've done essay writing for colleges, counseling. So we're working on the enrichment piece of it, but that's been great. The one thing we heard last year from Flex is that people were thinking about the idea of maybe expanding it, and having that been in place for a year, I thought that was a pretty good place to be as we stepped into this year. Identifying and targeting student skills and gaps. I know that I know Maureen came and presented around MCAS to you, and it's something that obviously as a staff we've spent a lot of time taking a look at so that we could kind of figure out where our strengths and weaknesses were from MCAS last year. I know our English team is actually working to bring in one of our PD days in January. They're actually going to bring in some English teachers from outside the district to come in and collaborate together to talk about what we're seeing in different districts and what they're seeing as strengths around certain areas of MCAS and ELA. And I know in the sciences and math, they're gathering together and doing some of the same type of work as well. Expansion of the after-school tutoring center. Last year, we were very fortunate to be able to fund an after-school tutoring center staffed by one of our paraprofessionals, Beth Morrill, who's fantastic. She was able to touch more than 40 kids last year through that center in the afternoons, which we hadn't done before, and I think was a huge help for a lot of those kids. And teachers have identified kids. She's in the classrooms a lot, so she identifies some kids on her own. But after school, 4 days a week, you can see her in the tutoring center. It's made a big difference, and fortunately we were able to put it in place again this year, and we're hoping, she told me business is booming. So I think that's really, it's a testament to her ability to be able to connect with the kids too. And then one thing we obviously started last year, and I know I talked to you a little bit about, we did a lot of stakeholder surveying, a lot of work with staff around beginning the process of Vision of a Graduate. We got input from the community, from students, from staff, all the different groups, and have finally come to our 4 targeted skills that we're going to work on descriptor language for this year that overall was, we all thought through all the surveying were the 4 critical things that our kids need when they're leaving Millis High School and going off into the real world, whether that be through college, career, or anything in between. And it just kind of happened this way, but it ended up with the 4 C's. So communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and character. So those are the 4 areas that we're going to do some work on this year, putting descriptor language together for, that as we move into next year, we'll take that descriptor language and start building some rubrics so that those can be measured in the classroom, and we'll really start to embed those. You'll see through like graphics and things that you'll see around the building will be things that I hope everybody can very easily identify as some of the more critical things that you'll need when you leave here and get into the real world. And I think we'll have a lot of things that'll be subsets of those in the language. I think that'll help define what our kids are we're looking for our kids to do when they leave Millis High School. So that's goal 1. Questions on goal 1? Okay. Goal 2 was high-quality curriculum and instructional strategies and best practices. We've talked here a couple times about rehauling our math curriculum, and that's something that we're in year 2 of this year, having our freshmen take algebra and sophomores take geometry. And then what we were able to do through some grant funding, thanks to Maureen's hard work and effort, was to get new curriculum for our math teams in both algebra and geometry that they're implementing this year. It's called Reveal Math. It's a combination of online materials with workbooks, a lot of great assessment tools, a lot of great formative assessment tools that teachers can use in assigning work to see where kids in the class are. They've done some professional development on it this year, and so far so good. So we're in year 1 of the new curriculum in Reveal Math. The state is put out new world language course frameworks, and so our Spanish team is taking a look at those frameworks and just making sure that our curriculum is aligned well with the frameworks, which, based on, I think, some of the work that they've done over the last few years, they were very well prepared for this. And I think that our curriculum falls in line very well with what the state's looking for us to do, but they're going to spend some more time on that this year. I know the middle school is going to start taking a look at aligning standards for writing and research skills. And so as they begin that process and start to do that through 6 through 8, we want to make sure at the high school level that we're kind of following along with what comes through from their direction. So we're going to work in conjunction with them this year to see if we can start to implement some of those things. And Mike Carter, who's our new librarian, who was an English teacher in the school for years, is kind of spearheading a little bit of that effort as well too. He's got some great ideas for research skills that I think we're going to be able to implement across the board. So we'll continue to work on that. Paul talked about, and Elise, about PD opportunities for engaging instruction. You know, one example of that is tomorrow's PD day. One thing staff had said that they really could use some help and assistance on was around executive functioning and having strategies to implement in the classroom around executive functioning. We're doing that tomorrow afternoon. So we'll have that. We also have teachers that are doing independent proposals, some around study skills and study habits, and working on trying to implement how they can implement curriculum in the classroom to help students in those areas too. So a lot of different things going on around PD. And then as always, and I talked to the kids about, talked to the staff about supporting peer observation. So, you know, we have so many singletons around the high school because of the nature of the small school, small staff. So I think the more teachers can get out and see teachers in other classrooms and disciplines, the more they learn from each other. We've had a couple people already do that this year, and I'm hoping we can continue to do that as the year goes on. And I will say, you talked about School Spirit Day. You'll see that picture down there in the bottom frame. Now those are something I learned about this year. Those are called grout fits. I'd never heard that
What's a
term
grout
before.
fit?
There's
I
the
can't see the
question.
picture.
When the kids asked me if it was okay if they could do,
A
yes,
gray
a gray
outfit.
outfit called a grout fit.
Head to toe and gray.
Head to toe and gray. And when the kids asked me this year if they could do grout fits, I had to go Google it because I wasn't sure what they were asking me. And so turns out that they're head to toe gray outfits. So I will have you know, I may not have been the abominable snowman, but I did wear my grout fit. I was dialed in for USA Day,
I wanna
Millis
help you.
Pride Day,
You
okay?
seem very defensive about
I
this.
got a little defensive, you know,
are.
I just because
No,
I
not a
didn't
little,
have my.
you got a lot defensive.
I did.
So the grout fits, what is the
You're halfway
benefit?
there.
You are
Yeah.
halfway,
What's
and he
the-
might be
thank
all
you.
the way there.
What's the benefit of wearing, like, what is that?
It's just a gray on gray outfit. That's it. I don't know. It was just
Grout fit.
Grout fit. Now you know something different. So if you want to go to work tomorrow,
Did
in
you
your grout
wear
fit,
a grout fit?
I did. Yeah, I was head to toe gray. Absolutely. You
Are there
know,
pictures of
I don't
that?
get recognition for that. You know, it's not about me. It's about the kids. You know, so I didn't take any pictures of myself. I ate the lettuce last year too. I was in the lettuce eating competition.
remember that.
I did. So you know, I had to defend my honor.
You
a little
really
bit
had
up
a
here.
good, strong career. How long have you been the principal? A year and a half now. You've eaten lettuce and you've dressed in gray.
Well, see, it's so that's it, really. I see. I told you I was stepping in it, but that's all right. You know,
There you go.
I'm gonna see if I can find a couple of pictures of myself to show
There
afterwards.
we're
huh?
fine. Goal 3.
Goal 3. Goal 3: supporting student physical and mental health and wellness. Supporting classroom environments, kind of like we've done, what Kelly Rao has done as our director of student services. She's gone into our faculty meetings during the year and has done SEL lessons with the staff in the hopes of embedding those with her students in the classroom. We're in year 2 of our partnership with the JED Foundation. We just found out at the beginning of this school year that that's actually going to become a 3-year partnership, which we're excited about. So in this year, we went through last year, did a lot of surveying, a lot of meeting as groups and teams, and with a group of about 20 to 21 people, which was pretty awesome. And this year, we're working in small groups to kind of put together the action steps that were identified through all the survey work and data that we did last year. So there's a lot of work there. We got about 15 action steps. I won't go over them all tonight, but at some point I can come in and explain those to you and let you know what we're doing. But we're tackling about half of those at the beginning of the year right now. Metro West Health Survey, we are working alongside Amy Leone, who's our new town social worker, to help compile that data, and she's going to come in and present, I know, in January to the committee. We're actually going to meet with her next week as a high school and talk about looking at some of the data and talking about some of the interventions and strategies we're already using and things that we might be able to do better with based on the data we see from that. I talked to you last year about the collaboration we have with Mass General and Harvard Med School in doing some surveying with our students around substance use. We did those surveys earlier this year, and in the beginning of next year, we'll be able to get that data back from them. We also have worked alongside MGH the Department of Public Health and a new program called I Decide, it's a drug education curriculum program meant to help as a restorative program for kids that might be struggling with substance use. And earlier this year, we got onboarded to the program, and we had 2 staff members that are trained in administering the curriculum. So if we do have students that are identified for substance-related infractions, we can use this curriculum as a restorative practice with those kids to try to get them the help that they need. We also could identify kids that just need the help in general. That could be part of this program, and I have 2 great facilitators to do that. So that's already in place and ready to go for this year. SEL screenings, same as I think Millis and Paul talked about, we'll be doing those. Actually, the staff's already in the midst of doing those right now, so that we can identify kids for targeted supports and interventions. We will continue to do signs of suicide programming with our freshmen and our seniors, and we bring in the Samaritans are going to come in this year and work with our sophomores and juniors, and we will also do a screener with those kids after those programs are done, so see if we can identify any kids that might be in need of help or assistance. And obviously I just talked about our partnership with Amy Leone, our town social worker, who already has paid dividends for us in trying to connect families and students to resources in the community that have been very difficult to obtain over the last couple of years, especially from a counseling and therapy perspective. She has been an amazing consult for us, and she has been an amazing partner in trying to get our families connected into helps and supports that we were having a very hard time doing. So she's been outstanding, and our counseling staff would say the exact same thing to you. So that's our goal 3. Goal 4, sustaining a culture of belonging and dignity for all students. Paul and Elise talked about our SMARTY goals and incorporating equity and inclusion into all that we do. Our teachers have spent a lot of time working through those goals this year. And as we've walked into this year and you talk about like culturally responsive teaching and professional learning that we've done at the district level, we've challenged kind of teachers to look at their curriculum a little bit and make sure that materials that they were teaching were reflective of the students that were sitting in front of them. And I know all the departments have done a variety of different things around that. Just thinking quickly off the top of my head, you can take a look. I know the English department spent a lot of time taking a look at the literature that they read and thinking about the kids that are sitting in front of them, and have challenged themselves with some new titles over the last couple of years that I know have been well received by our students and our students of color. Continuing to review data on all those things. Paul and we talked about the vocal survey that we kind of took a look at with as an administrative team in the last few weeks, and we're going to spend some more time on that and talk to the staff a little bit about some of those things. But we continue to take a look at achievement gaps, areas that we can address, attendance, things like that, and trying to foster some positive results for kids that are struggling in some of those areas as well. And then supporting clubs and activities that celebrate the diversity of our students and community. I would tell you, and maybe it's just a byproduct of the challenges of the last couple of years and not being able to gather as much. I've never seen so many new clubs, and they come to us at the beginning of the school year wanting to join, wanting to create something new in the school. And we had anything from we have an environmental group now that we never had before. We have an Active Minds chapter, which has about 60 kids in it, which was created at the end of last year to address to destigmatize mental health within the school and school setting. There's about 60 kids there. They've done a ton of stuff in the first few months of school. It's been pretty amazing. We were very fortunate to have some grant money from Kyle Cares, Jim Johnson, the Kyle Cares Foundation to kind of feed that program. And there were a couple other things that we had too. As I was looking this afternoon, we have an Allies Inc. group that came together. I've got a student who's working on a cultural night for her senior project where she wants to have dance and food, representative of a variety of the cultures within our school, and she's inviting people from the outside. So there's a lot of really cool things that are going on right now. We had a fantastic assembly put on earlier this year where Andre Strong Bearhide Gaines Jr. from the Nipmuc tribe came in and spoke to our entire school. It was an incredible, unique experience. Our Mohawk Council group put that together. When I tell you, like, when you've spent the last, few years here in separation from so many of the things that have just gone on and not being able to gather, he had at the end of the assembly 315 kids coming through the hallways into the gymnasium wrapped arm in arm with each other, doing a native dance into the gym, wrapping up around him in a way that was like so culturally positive and so bonding for our school, that it was a pretty emotional thing, I think, for a lot of us to see. I think part of it was not gathering like we have in the last few years, but part of it was just thinking that you had an entire school of kids together, kids that would not ordinarily holding hands, walking into the gym, learning a Native American dance, appreciating and embracing culture, and coming together as a class in a school. It was pretty cool. So I'm hoping we can continue to build on some of those things as we go forward. But those are the 4 goals, and that's in a nutshell all the different things that we're taking on this year, as brief as I can possibly be.
Nope, this
So-
is excellent. So I have this is not directed necessarily at you, I'll look to Bob, but my day job, we're putting a data and transparency dashboard together. And one thing that we found, and we reviewed it with 20 different stakeholder groups within the university, is that we have language in our everyday life that we take for granted. And meeting after meeting, and it was inside baseball stuff for us, they're like, could you put a list of definitions? Could you have a glossary? So I've been sitting here for 13 years now. Every now and then, there was a couple tonight, I won't bring them all up, but there were a couple that I'm like, I think I know what that is, but I don't know. And I've been sitting here and been fortunate to have administrator after administrator come through. I can guarantee you there are people that don't understand all of the terms on that, and they probably don't want to raise their hand. And I'm not saying for this year, but maybe next year. And I think it's a district, I think you could almost have a district-wide one, because I saw some of the same names popping on all 3.
Yeah.
I just think it's a thought, because I learned that from, in my job, they're like, you don't know that? They're like, no, we don't know that. And so
Sure.
we shouldn't take it for granted. I don't think we have to define everything, but I think it could be helpful to have a place setting where people can understand what these terms mean.
Sure. Yeah. And in
Just
education,
so
we have a
for
lot of
example,
them.
Yeah, the SMART goal there.
That was one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound, and includes
Yeah.
inclusion and equity.
And I don't
So
think it's a
that's-
paragraph. I think it's literally
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
what's the
But
acronym
But that's a
stand
very
for.
good point.
It is.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Please make a note. I made a good point. Thank you. No, these are,
Yeah.
all kidding aside, we get in the muck with the budget and policy, and we do, but it is, Ms. Copese, every week she gives a great presentation, and it's good to hear what's going on in the schools. It's good to have the administrators come through. We see it at home, right, when our kids come home, but it's also good to connect the dots and hear what's going on. So I always find that these presentations are very helpful for us. I think they'll be helpful for the parents. I don't, with all due respect to the other administrators, my favorite presentation is the SAT presentation.
I know. Yeah. I know.
SATs
I've
are
passed the
thing of the
torch on that, and I don't know if it would be if I hadn't started presenting it, though.
I
You gotta
think it's great
remember,
to see
you know.
what we're preparing our students to be lifelong learners do, not just in school,
Yeah.
but in other jobs. But I think this is helpful. It's a good way to ground the committee, and it's a good way for parents to, I think we hear it in streams here and there, but it's good to have it all in one. And I actually think having all 3, because we used to do them, we
One at a
separate them. I
time.
think,
Yeah.
having you together is helpful, because then you're seeing it kind of progress.
Yeah, and we appreciate the opportunity to come up here and do it. It's nice to talk teaching and learning.
I get it.
We've had a lot on the other side of that in the last few years, so it's nice to get back to teaching and learning
Ms.
again.
Briggs,
so
are you good?
I'm good, yeah.
Let's go.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the skills.
We see you on TV working the.
I'll be in
I'm not
costume.
really discreet, Mr. Dupree.
I'll be in costume directing traffic.
Hey, the more you talk about it, the more you feel really defensive.
I'll give you my coffee.
I'll fill you in more about Clyde off camera.
I know that. I didn't want to reveal, I didn't want to pull back the curtains the whole way.
Right. Thank you.
All right, thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Next is the chair report, the MSBA project update.
Can it be really fast, like theirs?
Yes, I'm going to be very quick.
Okay.
So tomorrow night, there was a meeting last week, I think I I think it was on Tuesday. I may have mentioned it
Yeah,
last week,
yeah.
but I'll mention it again, that there was an enrollment meeting. There was a discrepancy between what the state came back with and what we have from NASDAQ. This happened the last time there was a project, and then we provided additional data. Mr. Mullaney quickly pulled together the additional data from Mr. Gazinski, and we sent it downtown, and we'll wait to see what they come back with on the enrollment, because that is truly, that sets the tone for everything else. On a new building, it becomes your square footage. On a renovation addition, it's probably a little bit different, but it really does become important to how the building progresses, the project progresses. And then tomorrow night is the first meeting of the newly formed school building committee. It'll be on Zoom. There are both voting members and non-voting members, Mr. Mullaney, Mr. Ardicki, Mr. Dupree.
Yep.
Mr. Wiggin I think that's everyone from our side.
Mr. Anglers.
Mr. Angler. So they're representing the administration and the buildings in the project, Ms. Gibbons and I. So tomorrow's main business is to give a quick overview of the process and then to form a subcommittee to pick the owner's project manager, which will then lead us to getting the feasibility, progressing with the feasibility study. We can't go forward on the feasibility study until we pick an owner's project manager and the MSBA approves it. So it's a collaboration. We won't be doing anything on our own without downtown approving it. So that's a quick update on the MSBA project. Anything else from the committee on? Okay. Superintendent's report.
Okay. And for the superintendent's report, we have Mr. Wiggin here to do a couple of reports on our revolving funds and kind of the status of school choice fund and what we think we can expect. And so he has some numbers here. So I am going to, I'll work the slides for Mr. Wiggin.
Okay.
And kind of go through the.
Mostly because I have one of those terrible PCs. So, at any rate, all right. First slide after the title slide. So, just a quick overview of what school choice is. It's a program that's in general law. It basically allows families to send their children to schools in other communities other than the city or town that they reside in. The tuition is paid by the sending district to the receiving district, and districts can elect not to enroll school choice students if there's no space available. And they can do that two ways. They can do that as a district, say, we're just not taking any students anywhere, or they can do it as Millis does, which is we typically do it by grade.
Yes.
If a grade is full, we don't have space in a grade, we'll close off that grade, but we won't close off school choice as a whole. Next slide, please. So primarily what we have used school choice to pay for in Millis, and this is school choice in, is instructional staff at Clyde Brown, at the Millis Middle School, and the Millis High School, as well as maybe one or two district-wide instructional specialists. Now, overall for this year, that represents $607,000, or 3.27% of the budget, if you were to compare it in that sense. There is also a small portion each year, it's usually under $10,000, that covers supplies that were ordered in the previous fiscal year but weren't encumbered, utility bills that were received or were but not encumbered. I think I wrote that wrong, from the prior fiscal year, and occasional unique invoicing circumstances. Just there's every once in a while there's some really odd invoice that we get that we just have to cover based on the town requesting us to do so out of a fund, and more often than not, it's school choice. Next slide, please. So this is a history of the actual students. And I tried to look back more or less, I think it's about 9 or 10 years here. One of the things you can see is back in 2013 and 14, we had 69 incoming students, we had 29 outgoing students, and then that grew until basically from about 2017-18 through 2020-21, we were in the, I would say the 80s. There was one peak year of 91. And then starting in 21-22, we had a big drop of 7 students, and then we had another big drop this year. So we're back down to 68 students, the number we were at 10 years ago. Now the outgoing students, interestingly enough, also has dropped back down as well. But that is something that also directly affects revenue. So in those years we had a lot of students, we also had a lot of revenue. And we are seeing the issue with revenue, and you'll see this in a moment, this year with the lack of, or the reduction of students. Next slide, please. So for the last 5 years, and I've done this a little different, I've done it top to bottom, but in FY18 we had a $565,000 carry forward, and we had an ending fund balance of $394,836. Now, without going through every single number here, if you go down to FY22, okay, the last complete year, we had a $332,000 fund balance to begin that year. We ended that year with a $241,682 fund balance to begin FY23, the year that we are in. Next slide, please.
Yeah, actually, can you just,
no,
could
go
you just
ahead.
go back one more?
Back one more?
No, right there, that's fine. So, what we've been spending, and I know we're gonna get into a more of a. What we've been spending has been fairly,
Constant.
it fluctuates a little bit, but it's all been in the ballpark.
Yep.
It's not like we did $800,000 one year, or we have 1 year just shy of 500, and I don't know what the average of those other ones would be, maybe 530, maybe right around there. So the tuition in has fluctuated a little bit, but what we've been spending has remained fairly consistent.
It has remained fairly consistent until admittedly this year.
No, that's the.
Yeah.
That's
I
the
think
deal.
one thing we've done is usually, and Terry, correct me if I'm wrong here, the salaries that we pay out of choice are pretty consistent.
Yes.
Right.
You know, the same
Without
positions.
moving
every
around,
year.
right. I'm sorry, go ahead, you can go.
No, but I would say the other point I would say is other than in FY21 where we made a concerted effort to try and keep the spent figure within the choice in figure, which we did a pretty good job of for 1 year. For the most part, even though it's been fairly, within some variance, within that $525,000 to $575,000 range, we were still spending more than we were taking in. And no matter how you cut it, even
Right.
if it's only $10,000 more,
No, I know.
eventually it
But
all,
we also started in FY18, on July 1st of 2017, we had $565,000.
right, exactly.
And I think on your next slide, you're going to show the projected fund balance or ending balance this year, which is,
And projected for next year, which is not good. It's not negative, but it's not good. So what I did, and I will tell you that if you went to the state's website and you looked at choice tuition in, you would see a different number. You'll see a higher number. I think the number is like 443 or something like that. I do not believe that's a bona fide number at this point, because what they do is they use what they saw last year
that's right.
when they put that number in. That's a cherry sheet that was created last year. This is really based on a statistical calculation based on the number of students we actually have in our
I
enrollment
would rather
now.
be using a lower number anyways.
Right.
I think that's a safer way to look at this.
But so to clarify, when we we still planned on spending more than we knew we were bringing in. But we're roughly 60, the cherry sheet, which is theoretically what the budget was built off of.
Right.
Was $60,000 higher because it was based on, just for simplicity's sake, it was based on the 75 kids that we had last year.
Correct.
And we know
So the
it's not-
fact that we're down to 68 is the 60,000
Pretty much.
is that number. And, and then, it's interesting. You just have to wonder how much COVID has had an impact on kids not moving or looking to do choice because, again, or this is just a natural cycle because, again, we're back to where we were in 2013. But we were at 88 in 2021, 75 last year, 68 this year. We've dropped 20 kids in the last 2 years. Presumably that is kids have graduated out that weren't backfilled at the younger grades in these COVID years.
Right, and part of it is also like for this year, last year, we graduated more than we took in kindergarten because this year we could only take 4. We had a waiting list and we didn't have room.
Right.
Well, come the spent money projection is like half of what we've
Yeah.
been spending.
That's because that's because, and it'll go to the next slide, it's because we're not gonna,
Right.
we will have no cushion. So the difference between the 607 we're spending this year and the 360 he has it next year is we have to find it somewhere.
Okay.
So, because we can move.
Just checking, I'm just
Yeah.
making
No,
sure I
no, we can
didn't.
move to the next slide.
Please, that's why this is a big.
Well, actually, the
buildup.
next slide actually just details the 607 versus the 618 in a little bit more detail.
Where are we gonna find the 258, Terry?
Um,
Because that's the number I used. I used 618, 238 minus, oh, that's the revenue. Okay, 607. So hold on, let me go back one slide, just,
Can you go back a slide?
oh, sorry, yeah, Bob. So 607, 313 minus 360, right?
It should be 247, 3112.
Okay, you have, yes. 247, 313.
Okay.
I want to go through this, but where are we going to find that?
At the moment, that's why I'm trying to work out a cherry sheet for you for next week.
I understand that.
I mean, I honestly, I can't give you an answer right now.
I am beyond worried. So
Yep.
the conversation we're going to have at the tri-board, we're going to have a budget conversation next week. Conversation we're going to have at the tri-board initially was just to talk about the increase in out-of-district tuitions, which I think we've now established. The first number, and it's a rough number, it'll always be a rough number until school starts, was roughly $1 million for transportation, people going out of district, and the increase in tuition. Did not include the high school proposed program, which was 100,000. And actually, it could be a little bit more. So
Right.
we're looking at actually, I think it was 1.2, right?
It
I can
might
pull
might
it
have
up.
been, yeah, I'd have to go back and look at those.
Let's just say
original
$1
numbers.
million, and I'm
It's
not
$1
being,
million
I'm not,
dollars is a
I'm
nice
not
number.
being dismissive of 200,000.
I know.
$1 million just to address an unfunded mandate that we have no discretionary decision we have to fund. We're now looking at, what was the number two? You
Oh.
have it?
Just go to the
247,
next
312.
slide.
247.
It's
I
on
don't
the
have
next
the slides.
Oh,
I
why
don't
don't
have
you,
it.
why don't you
Well, I know,
skip
I'm
ahead?
asking Bob to
Oh,
Next,
Bob.
next slide, Bob.
that one.
There you go.
Thank you. I know I know we're having another conversation, but we need to be prepared when we go to the tri-board to bring this to the table as well.
And the reason I put the percentage down there is because you talk about where would you make this up. So in simplistic terms, if it's 1.33% of the budget, then that means your budget increase is no longer 4%, it's 2.67%. If you're making up this ground in that way, and I'm not suggesting you do. I'm
Well,
suggesting that.
it's, yes, that is what's gonna happen.
But-
It's one way or the other.
It's one way or the other. I mean, it's that, or it's, obviously, it's a more nuanced approach. Obviously, doing it through looking at the muscle and bones of the operating budget and saying, what are you gonna cut away?
But a $247,000 shortfall would be relatively routine. We are generally starting budget cycles with $300,000-$400,000 potential shortfalls that we have to try and manage if we can't get additional funding out of the town. And that generally gets solved through hiring savings here, some other things, that we can potentially work through depending on how the year plays out, $250,000 is still a big number, but it's.
If that was your only thing you were dealing with,
We'd be,
Right.
It's not the only thing we're dealing with.
Yeah.
We'd be fairly comfortable.
in isolation, you're right. In isolation,
It's the $1 million on top of it that makes,
But just to correct you, we've never had to worry about the 250 delta in choice.
Right.
So we were doing we were starting at 300,000 and 400,000 initially. That wasn't choice related, and I will even, for the sake of this conversation, put sped to the side, right? Because that is a separate and distinct piece. So just in a regular budget cycle, we wouldn't have had to worry about the 250.
right.
We'd be doing 400, 300 to 400, and like Mr. Conroy says, we would be chipping away at that. We're now fast forwarding and adding 250 on top of that. We are beyond in trouble. We are. So I know you have more, but something that
That's
you
fine.
brought up. Do a quick estimate for next week for our working session. And you've done this already, so I suspect that the formula is not hard. What is our increase in salaries? Meaning, we know, I think in the past you've shown it's 94% of our budget is salaries. And almost all of those people are under some sort of contract. So you can make a projection what it's going to be. So what is just a regular, not new teachers coming in, adding anything, current existing staff from this year to July 1st of next year, what does that increase look like?
Funny you should ask for that,
Okay.
because what I'm doing right now is I'm literally going through and calculating the FY24 salaries for every single employee of the district, because that would generate exactly the number you're looking for.
Thanks for being proactive.
So, well, yeah, I mean, it's one of the ways that we make I call it cherry sheet, I'm sorry. I'm confusing my sheets. The red, white, and blue sheet, more accurate for you.
Budget summary sheet.
I will, and one way or another, I will get that to you. I will tell you, without going into great detail here on camera, there is a personal situation I'm dealing with.
That's fine.
So that may create a few difficulties for me, and I'll just work around them.
No, and we will, if necessary, work with what we have for the budget.
No.
We're not going to be committed to an exact number.
In a worst case scenario, we can take our budgeted number, multiply it by 4%, like our current budget, multiply it by 3.5%, 4%
Right.
salaries. That'll give us a ballpark number of what our.
Right.
With the promise to come back with the more real number.
Right. So
We can work around. I don't want to interfere, but it would
No,
be
you-
helpful because I suspect that will be the first question at the tri-board. Well, what's your salary increase next year?
Again, things are going well. I've completed our biggest group of employees, so I'm moving right along, so.
I am
Oh, there's more.
No one's watching this, so we're not acting. This is not for the audience. We are.
So,
Bring
yeah,
in the bear.
I mean,
Go
so,
get the bear.
so,
We need the bear
Start
to
doing
come
your
in.
breathing, Steve.
That's not even
that's
going
right,
to help.
you gotta do the breathing, gotta do the breathing.
Go ahead.
So, you know, one of the things that, obviously, I think these are conservative estimates, but they are subject to change.
Yep.
I did happen to do a quick, you know, back of the napkin estimate that the 20 student reduction over the past couple of years was basically worth $112,000 to you. So, I mean, it's just plain, some of it's just plain, as Mr. Conroy pointed out, it's just simply a loss of students.
Yep.
I don't believe that the state, I don't believe we can rely on the state revenue figures in the cherry sheet. Okay, that, this time I am using it correctly, reliably anymore. I think we have to figure out our own revenue estimates.
Although I heard this morning, Rupa Shenoy, my favorite morning
I like her.
newscaster, stated that the revenue last month was 7% higher than expected. So we're seeing another increase in revenue coming into the state this year. Whether that trickles down to communities will remain to be seen.
The problem, and I will say this for anybody who will see this after the fact, and I have no bones about saying it, is the problem is, and I have no problem with increased revenue going to disadvantaged communities. I am all for that. The problem is that there are a lot of communities like Millis that are identified as wealthy that unfortunately get stagnant levels of revenue. And that places the burden on its citizens to continually pick up any kind of increase and any kind of problem like what we're facing with an unfunded mandate. And I just think that there's got to be a happy medium where these
They
types
should
of
base it on
things.
need, not just how
Right.
they judge us.
Well, there should
Exactly.
also be a base level of increase, like we've seen in countless years where our Chapter 70 money, the state, puts 5, 6, 7% into Chapter 70 above what it, and we get
$30.
exactly the same amount that we got last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
And-
several years.
And I understand there's enrollment factors, but then there is a large chunk of the targeted revenue, which doesn't come to Millis. It predominantly goes to the big cities and, small towns and.
They
Yeah,
need to
and
spread-
we're not-
They need to spread the wealth, pardon the pun, but that's,
No, they do, and it's not just Millis, there's lots of Millises
Yeah,
out here.
yes,
Right,
yes.
yes.
There's lots of Millises
Yes,
that
there
are
are.
suffering the same fate that we are. Unfortunately, all of us combined don't have the legislative
Right.
numbers that, a Boston, a Worcester, Springfield, Lowell.
Fall River, New Bedford.
Right.
Chicopee,
Can put together and manipulate these formulas.
Lynn.
So I've gotten off my soapbox on that one, but at any rate, in FY '24, what we're going to start doing is, out of necessity, obviously, is we're going to start budgeting not more than 98% of what we figure our revenue is going to be. So in other words, let's just say for the sake of argument, as an example, the state said we were going to get $400,000 in school choice in. And let's say we estimated we were going to get $350,000 of school choice in. We would budget 98% of that,
Of what number?
the $350,000.
The lower number.
The lower
I
number.
agree with that.
And then as we get to points where the school choice begins to rebuild itself, at basically at $50,000 increments, we'll revisit that with the committee and say, all right, do you want to change this? Do
So
you
the one
wanna-
request that I would have in your memo to us, and
Yep.
we don't know what a memo looks like exactly, but
Yep.
if we are using 98% of the lower number, we should state that.
Yep.
That the state is projecting this number, we don't believe that those are numbers that we will see.
Mhm.
We're basing it on what we think will actually be the true year-to-year
Right.
student count. Because what I don't want to do is just use that 350 with no explanation, and then if it is 400,000, they'll say, you were being sneaky. So explain
Right.
that we're being conservative in our revenue.
Well, I can
projection.
explain exactly how we get to our number, too.
Okay.
So, in theory, that, I'm okay with that concept. I think what we all have to recognize, though, and this is, quite frankly, why we are where we are, the combination of the reduction in students, but the other fact is, we have chosen, and again, we purposefully did this, of spending down that 600,000 that we started with, because it's all great to sit here and say, next year we're going to hedge that $50,000, but as we all sit around the table in 2 months, and the choice is, we think we probably are going to get that 50,000, or we got to cut 50,000 somewhere else.
Well,
99 times out of 100, we're going to hedge on the 50,000, because unless we, so I think what we need to, what we need to try and have a better understanding of, and this is because we're in a downward cycle compared to where we were always had a constant, but I think we need to look out and truly understand, like, if we think we can't bring in any kids into kindergarten next year, and we know how many kids are going to graduate, and we're going to lose another 10 kids net, then then we can say, but then it's a simple fact of, but then we're not, I don't think we need to even say we're hedging. We're saying they're based it on a wrong number, and the number is really going to be this.
Right.
I just want it to be
I agree,
right.
but if we say
I know what he's-
there's only
yeah.
2 kids graduating and we've got room in kindergarten, so chances are we're going to be at equal, and so we are 95% confident that the revenue number from the state's going to come in at 400,000. I would not feel comfortable budgeting at 350 and cutting $50,000 from something, because it's not like we're going to say it's only 350, so we're just going to go to the town and get the 50 somewhere else. No, what's going to happen is we're going to cut the 50,000.
So let me
So
try.
what are you basing the 350 on?
Well, that was an example. So let's get away from that for a second. So, for example, the estimate that I'm using right now for this year is based on $5,604 and some change per student, based on going back and statistically analyzing, on average, how much we got per student. Now, if you know your formula a little bit, you know that the basic formula is 5,000. But in fact, we get a little bit more for some students, because some of those students have special needs, and so we get additional money from the state. Hence the added money that I'm putting in there. So what I'm doing is I'm taking that statistical figure, that 5,604, I'm multiplying that in this case by the number of students we have enrolled, and I'm saying that's how I get to $369,000. That's the exact same thing that I would do moving forward in FY24, is I would look at our enrollment. I'd work with Bob, I'd work with the principals
Because
and
the
say.
end is the enrollment. That's
Right.
Right.
And say, all right, we expect our enrollment is going to be 66. Okay, and again, example, please.
Yeah.
Okay? We're going to take that, we're going to double check that statistical number we're going to use. Maybe it changes a little bit. Maybe now it's 5608. But we're going to double check that and make sure we've got a sound number. And then we're going to take that number, we're going to multiply it what we expect our enrollment to be. That's our core number, whatever that ends up
Yep.
being. Then 98% of that number is what we would budget to use.
Why?
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 Because, quite frankly, to budget it at 100% is asking for trouble when you've got a fund balance this tight.
No, what I thought you meant by looking at 98%, because we're down 1.3% or whatever the number is.
Yeah.
Go back one slide, Bob, I think.
Let's
1.33.
Yeah.
So I thought you were saying our increase in operating budget, we should be only doing it at 98% because we have to make up the less than.
No, different issue. So let's talk about that $247,000 gap, because that's one of the final points I make on this slide. On the 247, maybe he's not, yeah, he's there. So on the $247,000 gap, what I am saying there is that if we have a positive fund, one of the things we've done traditionally in the past when we have a positive fund balance is we prepay special ed tuitions. I am suggesting we cannot afford to do that this year. We need to put that money back into school choice. The school choice fund is simply going to end up being too tight at $10,000 to allow us to prepay anything for special ed tuitions.
So, and I don't disagree with that. One, we have to be transparent about that as well.
Yes, we do.
So I'm going to add another thing, and I understand. So there's a wish list of information we need. Understanding you may not have it for next Tuesday or even next Thursday. But, and I think you've prepared this because I think we've asked this before. How much money have we prepaid over the last 5 years? I think you tracked that for us at one point.
I can probably track it. I can tell you really quickly that in the last 2 years, we've prepaid zero.
Okay.
But 5 years, I mean, there's some years we've prepaid $200,000.
Right.
Well, but those prepaids were from, they were predominantly from budget savings in the year.
Correct.
Yes.
And the alternative was to turn it back or build up choice to a higher value.
Correct.
Right, because we've taken
take staff out
salaries
of
out
Right,
of
out of
choice.
right,
choice.
so that we left-
And keep the money in
So,
there.
And in most years, we've done a little bit of both.
right. So we're gonna have to figure out how to close whatever size gap this is, which is somewhere probably between 1.2 and 1.5 million, is gonna be my guess.
Are you including the out of district? Okay.
Yeah. And, but then what it's gonna mean is we're gonna have to get back to you from a choice perspective. Only budgeting to use some percentage, and honestly, 98% might be a little high. We're basically gonna zero out choice from a perspective of we're gonna have it down to $10,000 at the end of this year. Basically.
That's effectively a wash.
Right. So for budget 24, we will figure out what that number is, 368, whatever that number is. And then we're going to have, and then that's how much, and we'll figure out, how much of that do we want to keep? Is it 98%? Is it 95? Is it 90? Do we want to keep 10% of that so that we're planning on 30,000, that we have a wiggle room of $36,000 next year. That ideally you end the year and you've got 36 left over. Again, that is going to make difficult choices, but we can have those discussions. But we're going to have to close the $1.2 million. I think we'll have to put everything on the table in order to do it. But even closing that even closing the 247 with other revolving fund balances is a 1-year solve. It's not, and what we'd really be talking about is taking kindergarten tuitions and paying, putting it in and covering things that aren't kindergarten, or we move it around again for 1 year and we take a kindergarten position that's paid out of the operating budget and put it in the revolving fund and just know it's got to come back out the following year.
Well, again, realistically, the only three other revolving funds, preschool revolving, of course, and there's athletic revolving, and transportation, 4 others. And even with fee increases, they're simply just not going to be big sources of compensating for this.
Because there's not big balances,
No, they're not big
No.
balances in these accounts.
Has a big balance.
Right.
And quite honestly, each of those funds arguably has needs of their own.
We should be buying a van.
And the balances that were in those was to protect those programs
Right.
from
Exactly.
cuts.
Exactly.
Like, it was in a bad year, if we needed to protect the kindergarten program, we had kindergarten revolving.
But-
If we had, athletics to help athletics, transportation to help transportation.
Absolutely.
So,
But we may be in a position of a DEFCON 5 where we're busting these balances just to get to, I mean, we're having an off-camera meeting next week, but anyone who's watching this and anyone who's reading the tea leaves, without significant help from the town
or the state.
or the state, without significant increases in revenue,
Right.
above and beyond the 4%, we are in an extremely dire situation when it comes to staffing.
And again, for anybody watching, just to be clear, the issues that we're talking about, by and large, are mandated. These are not things that are nice to have things for the school district. These are mandated teachers, these are mandated programs, these are mandated services
Because part of the
that we're
reason
required to
why we've
deliver.
been spending more out of choice than was
Right.
coming in was because of mandated expenses that were beyond our control, and this was a mechanism to
Correct,
alleviate
correct,
some of that,
correct.
because we had significant balances.
Correct.
Anything else on this incredibly depressing slide deck? No, questions? No, I think you summed it up nicely. You know us well enough. You know where we're going. You know what we're doing next week. Bring whatever you need on Tuesday for the conversation. I don't think that there's a tremendous more. I think really what Tuesday becomes is a conversation about how do we present to the tri-board.
I can give you a little bit of good news in the tuition front. We did get a letter from BICO? BICO?
Yeah.
You say BICO, I say BICO. It's a collaborative that we do, would potentially have 2 or 3 students at. Instead of having a 14% increase, they're going to probably have a 10%, well, they are going to have a 10% increase. So it's a little savings. It'll help.
So, because I'm trying to be positive with all the discussion about the bear, so we get maybe 3 or 4% from the state, right? Our revenue increases, so.
And collaborative.
Just one
This
collaborative.
isn't the same as the
No, my
private schools.
point is, we should be thanking them for, did any of these
The collab,
it's given us a breakdown of what this 14% looks like, other than this?
I think the Superintendent's Association and I believe the School Committees Association, as a trio, have asked the Operational Services Division for that information. And they have also asked certain legislators that we have good relationship with, that there's simply no way districts can absorb that kind of increase. Unfortunately, even if the legislature does something, we won't know about it until after our budget is.
I mean, we
Set.
literally have a budget, we have a budget on our website that explains from year to year what our increases are. They list, not people's names, but positions.
Right.
Like, how, they're getting public money. They are a public entity, even though they're private. The state money, they need to explain how it's being spent. I know that's
Well, and they-
not gonna help us.
Some of it's spent on offering bonuses.
Yeah. Which is, Bob's right.
But I have to think that the state, while the numbers won't be final,
We will have it.
I would wonder if the initial cherry sheets, whether it's the governor's version or the Ways and Means version, will have some subsidy to address this if it's pushed?
It will probably give us a hint, but this is going to be different than we've had for, what, 8 years? Okay? Because what we've had is we've had a Republican governor and a Democratic legislature, and the Democratic legislature typically has moved beyond the Republican governor. Now we have a Democratic governor and Democratic legislature, and I'm not sure how that's going to play out. In other words, we'll have the governor's budget early, but whether the Democratic legislature will let that ride, whether they will increase, or, as you say, because of additional revenues, or whether they will decide that, well, we do need to show a certain degree of fiscal responsibility and decide maybe they need to cut it a little bit in certain places. And unfortunately, public education is one of their biggest lines.
Probably depend on where the governor's budget comes.
It
If
does.
she goes real high,
Yep.
then, but if it's,
I think, yeah, I think we're probably, we'll get
either way, hopefully we'll have some indication of whether they're going to address this or not.
Yeah.
Because if they're not, again, not just Millis,
Yes.
there are going to be districts across the state who are in a very, very difficult spot.
Well, and the other thing that has been talked about, and I wish I knew what Jay Sullivan called it, and I apologize for not knowing the specific term, but Jay Sullivan, who's the Deputy Commissioner of Education, and he's their finance guru, and he's probably forgotten more about school finance than the rest of us will collectively ever know, has basically been very public about saying that they are going to need to put in some kind of program to mitigate the impact for every, and he says it this way, every school district in the state.
Yes.
He doesn't say it disadvantaged communities, he doesn't differentiate. Every school district in the state. So my guess is there is some legislator or some group of legislators that we will also see early legislation. And again, I know that the Superintendent's Association and MASBO have been kind of behind the scenes, kind of waiting to see when that develops so that they can kind of jump on board and help push that.
I think it's funny that you think Charlie Baker was a Republican, but I get it. I understand that party. I'll take him as a Republican any day over some of the other ones around. Thank you for this. I know you worked hard and exerted yourself, you and Bob, over the extended day. That helped us get to a good place. But we're literally turning around and going to this tri-board. And I don't think we were in a position to meet any earlier, but I'm glad that we're not waiting till after the first of the year. I think that would have been a bad thing. So think through balancing work-life balance, but think through what it would be helpful for next Tuesday is in draft form, kind of a memo that we can then put on the desk at the tri-board. I think the memo you produced a couple weeks ago identifying the sped increase, removing the middle school position or the high school position, I don't see that changing unless you see numbers changing. I think you have.
I think the
framework.
numbers may change slightly. I've got to go back and look at that
10%
spreadsheet.
FICO stuff.
But you know what I'm saying.
I do.
I think you're 99% there, other than changing the numbers. And then I think it's another piece of the choice.
Good.
In laying it out. And I think you have a lot of the framework right there with numbers and previous projections. What am I missing?
No, just one thing that would be helpful in terms of choice. I know this year, I might have said this last week too. If we can understand how our enrollments in the kindergarten, first grade this year, and what we're looking at, even enrollment in preschool, of what we think, so that we can articulate that enrollments and population in Millis at the young age is impacting our
Impacting choice.
ability
Boxing out,
to
yeah.
generate revenue. So, you know, there's a lot of conversations that have been happening in the last year or so about demographic changes and what populations are growing and which ones aren't. Our inability to allow kids to choice in because our kindergarten age student residence in Millis is higher, you know, presumably higher than what it was, which is forcing us to not let choice kids in, which is in turn, you know,
Yep.
costing us $50,000,
all connected.
$100,000.
That makes
Right,
sense.
so,
It's all connected.
so some of this, you know, some of this new growth through development, it isn't all Glen Ellen seniors. There are still young families, and maybe it's because, you know, seniors moving to Glen, selling their houses, but there is as much, there is some young family growth coming in that's spurring some of this revenue growth. So so if we can help
Right.
illustrate the impact that that's having on,
Yeah, and I think, you know, again, I think COVID messes with the numbers. Last year, I think we had 55 kids in pre-K, and our kindergarten is packed, and this year we have over 70 kids doing pre-K.
so we're not, just pretty safe to say, we're not gonna be able to bring kids into choice in
Doesn't
kindergarten
look-
next year.
Right.
Doesn't look.
Yes.
You know, and we're, you know, graduating 6, 7, 8.
So,
And I
so
mean-
there you go.
And, I mean, this isn't always the case, but typically speaking, if you don't bring them in pre-K and K,
You don't get them,
you don't get them.
unless it's a teacher's kid, right?
Right, exactly.
Whereas our departure is 7th grade and 9th grade. You know,
Going to
we-
middle
we-
schools, going to high schools, right?
Right,
Right.
we
Right.
inherently are
Schools.
going to, you know, lose kids.
Yeah, if we get them in kindergarten, we keep them at a minimum probably till 7th grade.
Yeah,
And then we may keep them the whole way, or we're gonna lose them.
right. But when we lose kids, it's at 7th grade and at 9th grade.
Yeah.
You know what we're looking for.
I do.
This is the more data we have, it's not gonna be the only conversation we have with the tri-board, but I also feel pretty strongly that we don't have to, we have the ability to come back with additional information, but I think we should try to be as clear as possible of how bad it looks. Because we can't say, oh, it's 500,000 now, and then it's $1 million now. They're gonna start to question what we're doing and how we're planning. Any number we give, especially when it comes to students coming in, going out, there'll be an asterisk, because we don't know. Because what seems appropriate on December 15th when we meet could literally change a week later, or on January 1st. We can frame the conversation, but we should try to be as clear as possible, saying, at this moment in time, if nothing drastically changes, this is what it looks like next September 1st.
Right. Agreed.
And we can, and then we still have a regular budget process, but we need to get ahead of that before they start making bigger decisions. It's not just they, there's no real they, until the town starts making bigger decisions on what budgeting looks like across the town. Anything else? You've given us enough.
On school choice, no. Did you want to talk very briefly about revolving funds?
I saw them. I think we can, why don't we could talk more next
Next
Tuesday.
week? Okay,
I-
that's fine. I'm good with that.
I was hoping to see huge balances, knowing that there wouldn't be there. But even getting back to Mr. Conroy's point, even if we took some of the money out, we're stripping these down to bare minimums. There's things that we should be spending the money on, and it's not gonna solve the problem.
Well, and again, it's just not, it's not going to solve the problem.
It's gonna help lessen the blow a little bit, but nothing significant, and we're putting ourselves in a precarious position in those funds.
Yep.
when we need to buy a new sped van and we took the $25,000 out. Now we've put ourselves in a bad place.
I would tell you, by the way, speaking of sped vans, just to give you again a little positive news, we are in the process of trying to order, maybe I've told you this before, trying to order the earmark van.
Oh, yeah, you can't get them, is what you told us.
Well,
What van?
we have earmark funds that we'd hope
Oh.
we're gonna cover part of two vans. At the moment, we're not gonna be able to get two vans, but we are hoping we might be able to get our hands on one. We're still working on it. Yes, there's a lot of difficulty, but we're knocking on wood. and
Does the
we're-
money go away, or do we still have the money?
We still have the money. But I don't wanna try for year three. I wanna spend it, somehow or rather, I'm gonna commit that money this year, because I don't wanna lose it.
Fine, I get it.
Terry, the only one, and this is the other one, the circuit breaker. We can have
Yes.
an estimate, you know, again, I know but an estimate of how much, because I know we get circuit breaker, the funds relate to the prior year. So
Right.
if there's any favorable possible news in our circuit breaker revenue that we would receive next year based on the high cost this year, that would be help, again, it's, if
I can
whatever
try to- yeah, I can-
caveats we need to put on it, but, you know, it does trail a year, so, you know, we've got 139,000 projected to be ending that year, and if we're getting more than we think, more than we did this year, it'd be helpful.
More than 502.
Right.
Yeah, and I did a little bit of that, sort of as a precursor, but yes, I can do something with that, because I would say that almost certainly we should be getting more standard circuit breaker. There's a slim possibility that we would get supplemental circuit breaker, which would actually be based on our FY '24 costs. So there's a couple of different ways we might get additional circuit breaker revenue. Again, unfortunately, it's something we can't really budget on.
Right.
Because we don't know we're gonna get it. And even if we knew we were gonna get it, it's a fixed fund, so how many other people are going to get it, and then it gets divvied up. But yeah, I think there's a couple of positive things, but again, I would not expect them to bail us out in any significant fashion.
No, but again,
everything-
it's not bailing us out, but
Every little bit helps.
every
It's
30 to
chipping away,
50,000
chipping
Yep.
away.
is,
Yep, chips
I'm
away.
thinking about what it's saving on the other side.
Oh, no,
Right.
everything helps, I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wiggin.
You're welcome.
We won't judge you by the news you bring.
Thank God.
All right. Mr. Mulaney, do you have anything?
I think that's all.
I think that was it.
have.
So, are you good?
I'm good.
So what I'm thinking is next week we do an off-camera working session in person. Does that work?
Yep.
I don't think it translates to Zoom. I think the give and take.
Yeah, that's
back and
better.
forth
Yeah.
Yeah.
is helpful.
Yep.
Dave, we don't need to be on camera. We don't need the recording secretary unless you want to come in listening to more riveting conversation.
And I think speaking for Sue, she'll pass too.
Yes, and so we will, I'm also, as a side note on the meeting dates, I'm gonna survey the committee to try to find dates. We have the third set. Maybe what we'll try to do for next week is at least try to identify at a minimum the second January meeting, and then figure out what's the rest of the year, so. But we do have the third, and we'll work from that, but I have to survey the committee. Anything else on your end?
No, I'll share with the committee what's going on when we're done off
Are we
camera.
going into executive session?
No. Just
Oh, okay.
when you close the meeting, I'll
Oh,
share.
okay. If no other, I would take a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion to adjourn, it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.